Okay, we're ready.
All right, looks like we're ready to go. So I'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first ever South. Can you hear me now? Okay. So I'll repeat. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first ever Southwest Atlanta Women's Coalition Domestic. Thank you. Better. All right. So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first ever Southwest Atlanta Women's Coalition Domestic Violence Forum. My name is Awana Bong Udoko, and I'm a Community Engagement Partnership Coordinator with the Atlanta VA. So, in my role, what I do is I actually provide technical support to coalitions, groups similar to Southwest Atlanta that are working to bring change in their communities. So I'll be hosting today's event alongside Dr. Reverend Kanzada Timon, the founder of the Southwest Atlanta Women's Coalition. So before we get started, let's take a deep breath. Let's be real, this is a sensitive topic, right? So with that, I want everyone to just consider if at any point it gets uncomfortable for you, please know that we're here to support you. And those that are participating online, know that the 988 suicide prevention number is available at any time if you need to call and talk to someone. Okay? So with that, I'm going to take things over to Dr. Reverend Timon so she can go ahead and tell us why we're here.
Well, greetings, everyone. I am Dr. Twyman, um, and we are here today, truly, just desiring to want to increase everyone's awareness, our online attendees, our attendees that are present here with us. We desire to increase the awareness of women, girls throughout high risk, low income communities. That's what the coalition is all about. It's a gathering of like minded women that desire to make change in their community. And so we thought it not be wrong throughout the month of October to do something to highlight and bring awareness to those that may be challenged or caught up in some level of domestic violence, intimate family violence. So we're here today to do just that. And we have some awesome panelists before you on today that's going to increase. So increase your awareness. So get your pencils and your pads out and jot down your notes. We're going to be available to take any questions. If anyone desire to meet and talk with any of the panelists at the end of the forum, please feel free to do so. And so right now, I'm going to turn it back over to our community engagement specialist, where she will begin to give a brief update on our panelists.
Thank you, Dr. C. Okay, so starting out, we have Reverend Dr. Hope Simmons Sutton. She's an advocate for women and girls. Dr. Hope is the founder of She is Powerful LLC, and She is Powerful Global Ministries. Her gifts have made room for her as an international speaker in Israel and a partner with ministries serving Africa and Jamaica. Dr. Hope uses her prophetic gift to move women of faith from their stuck places to their healing spaces through professional coaching that is psychology and theologically based. So, can we please give a round of applause for Dr. Hope? All right. So next in line, we have Miss Ina Johnson Myers. Miss Myers is an international keynote speaker, resiliency coach, and 5-time bestseller author. She is the CEO of When She Rise, LLC, a company that specializes in narcissistic abuse, awareness, recovery, and victim prevention. Her teaching specializes include understanding the difference between healthy and narcissistic love relationships, developing tools to identify red flags through the dating phase, and awareness of the not-so-obvious narcissistic personality traits and mannerisms. So can we please give a round of applause for Ms. Myers?
Then we have Miss Adrienne Marie Lawson. Adrienne Marie is a native New Yorker, and she spent most of her adult years residing in Maryland, where she gained her knowledge and her expertise in co-occurring disorders and recovery. She is rooted in her process to heal. That's a good thing to know. She's rooted in it. Her process to heal. She believes one must be healed emotionally, physically, and spiritually in order to move forward in life. Adrienne Marie began Fella, LLC. This newly founded project is intended to serve girls, young ladies, adults, women, and elderly in underserved communities forced to check the minority box. It will be a program, she says, that will address the needs of the community with holistic teachings and a healing approach. Can we take a moment to just applaud Miss Adrienne Lawson? Then we have Marinette Helms. Marinette is a licensed master social worker with 34 years of experience in the social and human service arena. Marinette serves at-risk youth, families, couples, and individuals. She's obtained a wealth of experience in adoption and family preservation. She has a passion. This is vitally important. She has a passion for educating, empowering, and supporting children, individuals, families in developing healthy relationships through providing mental health services. Additionally, Marinette is a licensed real estate professional serving the state of Georgia, helping people to connect to their dream home. Can we take a moment right here and welcome Marinette?
All right, and with that, we'll go ahead and get started with some questions. So I'll start off with Reverend Hope. So, when it comes to domestic violence, silence and isolation can often be the received response to those experiencing intimate partner violence. What has been some of the ways some faith-based communities respond to some situations that can either be supportive or damaging to the individual experiencing the violence?
First, thank you for having me to be a part of this discussion today. I think oftentimes when it comes to intimate partner violence and the church's response, oftentimes if the leadership, meaning the pastor or whomever that designated person is, maybe spiritual care, pastoral care, minister, is not really aware of what is going on in terms of understanding domestic violence, intimate partner violence, and what that means, it can really be damaging to the person who's experiencing the violence. So by that, what I mean, sometimes the silence comes from the top, from the leadership, and they don't want to know what is going on in your home. So a lot of times it can be what happens at home, stays at home, and we just gonna pray about it, but we really don't want to know about it. So a lot of times when the leader of the particular place of faith is not well versed, not equipped, not trained, not exposed, it can really be damaging to those individuals. So in that regard, I would say that some of the ways faith-based communities respond is simply sometimes by not responding in an appropriate way. So you leave the congregant just out to fend for him or herself. And I say him or herself because we know that violence do happen, right, to men as well. But a lot of times in churches, particularly, the leadership is mostly male in a lot of places, right? And so depending on that dynamic and their experiences with women particularly, they just may not care, right? Because they got some unresolved stuff too. So I think if a church, a faith-based community, right, is really intentional about their entire flock, so to speak, then they would not only celebrate breast cancer awareness, but they would also do something about domestic violence. We see there's an imbalance. So a lot of times they don't talk about it because, like, breast cancer is a big deal, but it gets big funding. And it's something that's outside of their control. A lot of times people think that if a woman is in a domestic or intimate partner relationship that's going violent, she can do something about that. So there's not a lot of sympathy, not a lot of compassion often for that person who's experienced that because it's outside of yourself. Cancer's in your body. I mean, it happens. And there's a lot of compassion around that, and rightfully so. But when a person comes in to a place of worship, a house of prayer, a place of faith, they're coming there because often for the Black community, the church is our refuge. It is supposed to be a safe place, right? And so if a person comes into that space and there are no resources, there's no lists available, there's no flyers, there's no person that they can confide in, you really are, in my mind, somewhat complicit in her ongoing damage, right? Because you're not doing anything. So that's what I think they're not doing well. I do think that there are some who do it and do it well, meaning that they, especially this month, spotlight that is a both and. It doesn't have to be either or, like either we're gonna celebrate and recognize breast cancer or we're gonna do domestic violence. Some people doing both and, right? And I think also there are people who understand that prayer, while it is absolutely essential in our faith-related dynamic, is not the only thing, right? So talking about how we can have faith and prayer and also a process. That if a person comes in during the week and they say, I'm hurting, I have a black eye, my teeth are knocked out, something is going on, or it's financial, right? Because that person in an intimate violence relationship, they may not put a hand on you, but they're condescending. They're talking down to you like a child. They're giving you like only the bare minimum to survive, right? So whatever that looks like, the church should have some resources available to guide them and to be committed to keep connecting with them until they get to the right place. So I think, it's just doing a health check for the church or the faith-based community, doing a health check just to see how do we stack up. If we're in community, then community, right, is a part of our outreach. And we have to be willing to be available to all and not just pick and choose who we want to serve. Because you never know who's going to come to your door. If the doors of the church are open, then what happens if it's open to me and I'm in intimate partner violence, right? So I think sometimes offering prayer is a great place to start. But I think, too, sometimes when you are in it, you already feel abandoned by God. So having resources of a counselor who can give that other side, because sometimes the person has prayed a lot to get out of the situation. So if all we have to offer is prayer, then, we still giving ourselves almost a failing grade, in my opinion, right?
I agree. And you said a lot there because I think the biggest thing is the resources, right? The knowledge, the education on how do I find these things. I'm always an advocate for mental health classes being provided. Faith-based communities, even local businesses, anyone can get mental health first aid, right? So you know how to recognize the signs and really be able to support those going through these things. I always say it, the crisis line, 988. Even if you're not the person that knows how to help them, but you do know how to pick up the phone and call, right? So that's the biggest thing. You may not have the answer, but you can at least refer them and know who to connect them with. So thank you for that.
I want to add one more thing too when it comes to the faith-based communities, and I think Ina can talk a lot about that too, is that I know some people have probably heard that, wolves in sheep's clothing, right? A lot of times perpetrators, especially in the faith community, mask very well. So they can be, again, male leaders, because we're talking about women today. They can be male leaders in the congregation if it's not the pastor, right? It can include the pastor, all of the executive team, all of, the deacon board. It just can be all around the church. And I think it's important for us to realize that perpetrators mask very well. They have a way to even present like Christ-like behavior, yet they're terrorists outside of the church, right? And so I think sometimes that manipulation, that coercive spirit, that submitting spirit, because we're talking about faith now. So it can all work against the one who's being perpetrated upon, because they can make it appear that I'm the head, I'm the leader of this household, submit to me. And it's coming from the scriptures, but it's wrongly applied. And so we have to be very careful. I have to be careful because I'm a clergy person, right, and a pastor, that I don't forget that somebody who's tithing, giving offerings, offering service, can actually be a perpetrator, and I don't know it. And so I think we have to look for signs and cues that if somebody is never able to separate from their partner in a worship encounter, we ought to pay attention to that. If a person can never speak for him or herself, we ought to pay attention to that, right? It doesn't mean everybody is experiencing domestic issues, but it means just pay attention. I think that's one of the things I wanted to also offer during my time.
Thank you.
That's real good. Dr. Hope, that was really good. A lot of good information. Really, really good. And we're going to move right along to Anna. Wow. Understanding the difference between healthy and narcissistic relationships.
Absolutely.
If you would, you're the expert in this. So if you would share with the audience that difference, and then explain to us some of the statistical data that you have identified with in your teaching this and traveling throughout the country.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here, and thank you for having this topic. As Dr. Hope talked about, this needs to be talked about. This needs to be talked about. It's something that we don't want to cause too much waves, but people are suffering in silence. People are dying because of this. People are turning to drugs and alcohol because that's the quickest way out of this situation. So I thank you all for having this. As far as the difference between healthy and narcissistic love is very transactional. Healthy love is unconditional. We know that. Narcissistic love is very manipulative. There's an end game. You may not know the game or what the end game is at this time, but it will reveal itself. The devil comes to kill, steal, and destroy. It will reveal itself. So a lot of times we're in the relationships for years before we understand what the end game was. Because a lot of people don't even have the vocabulary to know what they're seeing and what they're hearing. They just think they're being too sensitive, and it's them. So narcissistic love, like I said, manipulative, lack accountability. They will accept the responsibility for anything great. They will lack the accountability for anything that goes wrong. Everything, if what you have is mine, what I have is mine, and it's like if something happens, it happened because you caused it to happen, not because I put you in a situation that this caused to happen. So narcissistic narcissism is very no accountability. You have to hide your accomplishments when you're with someone that's narcissistic, because you achieving your accomplishments, it causes them to look at themselves and think that they're not achievers. They're not successful because you achieved. When you're with someone that you have to hide the good things that God blesses you with, you have to hide a promotion, you have to hide someone just saying, hey, how you doing? You have to hide everything. There is a problem. It's a them relationship versus a us relationship. Oftentimes, like I said, you don't notice this in the very beginning because oftentimes you're just so excited because of the love bombing. You're just so excited to be with this person. It sometimes takes a while before you realize this thing is not about me. It has never been about me. Even if you're in a hospital, they will somehow turn that to be still about them and be upset because you're in the hospital and you don't have the capacity to serve them. When you're dealing with healthy relationships, it's about unconditional love. It's about collaborating. It's about partnership, accountability, supporting each other's achievements, and reciprocity. Narcissistic relationships have no understanding of reciprocity, none whatsoever. As far as the narcissistic love, when you get into a relationship with a narcissist, it's very slow burning. You don't recognize it or see it in the beginning because in the beginning there's excessive love, excessive gifts. They're putting you on a pedestal. That's part of the narcissistic cycle. There's 3 cycles. You have the love bombing, you have the devaluation, and then you have the discard. So in the love bombing phase, they are loving you to death sometimes. They are loving you. You're thinking that this is, like I said, this is real love because you see all the affection, you see all the attention, you see all the things that's happening. You all are going on trips. You're not realizing that you're the one paying for those trips. You know you're paying for them, but you think you're paying for them because later down the road, you all are going to be together and it's going to be, so a lot of times you pay for stuff with the end thought that this is going to be a lasting relationship. So you're paying for things, so you all are going on trips and you all are doing all of this stuff, and you're thinking that this is love. It's not until your brain gets a chance to actually step back, and one of the reasons why they love bomb so hard because they don't want your brain to be able to understand that something ain't quite right. So it's hard pressed. It's all the stuff going on real fast. And sometimes we call this homosexuals. And these are narcissistic people that need a place to stay. So they will love bomb you like crazy. They will give you hobos. They need a place to stay. And like I said, they will love bomb you, and then until one day they come over and they never leave. 4 years later, they still there. Not paying rent, not paying for food, not paying for nothing. But they're, giving you all this so-called great love that as the person, you realize it wasn't as great as you thought it was. So that's what narcissistic, like I said, the situation with them, there's many forms of narcissism, but overt and covert, and malignant narcissists are some of the ones that I deal with. When we talk about statistics, psychologists report that over 158 million people in the US alone are affected by narcissistic abuse. And they say those numbers are low numbers because they can't account for the generational effect of narcissistic abuse, the parents and the children that are narcissistic. The way the US, or the way we, people, psychologists, the way they diagnose narcissism is either you have to be institutionalized, and so you have to be forced to do it, or as a narcissist, you have to actually volunteer to go and get help or counseling. The sheer definition of narcissistic, you don't think anything's wrong, so you're not going to go and get the help that you need. In accordance to, what they think, you're the problem. You're the problem because you're not submitting enough to them. You're the problem because you may have gained some weight. You're the problem because you're not giving them all that love and affection, that endless love and affection that they need. So they automatically assume you're the problem. And also, according to the APA, the American Psychiatric Association, they categorize narcissistic personality disorder as a cluster B personality disorder. Also categorized as a cluster B personality disorder are sociopaths and psychopaths. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of times when we talk about narcissistic, they think the selfish, the selfish person, the people that, the mama's boy. When we talk about narcissistic personality disorder, we're talking about that high scale, sociopath and psychopaths. And also, when you do have narcissistic personality disorder or any personality disorder, you can actually have multiple. You can trust and believe. You can be a narcissistic personality disorder and still be a sociopath and a psychopath in one body. It happens more than we know, more than we understand. And also, people that are dealing with that abuse, it takes them an average of 7 times to get out of that relationship, if they get out alive, because it's so charming. They're very charismatic. They're very funny and joking, so they're very personable. But narcissistic personality disorder is more dangerous than sociopath and psychopaths because they draw you in with that charm. They draw you in with that charisma. So you think that all that love and affection that you had in the beginning is going to come back, so you keep getting drawn in to all of that abuse, not understanding that all of that love bombing was done just to draw you in. It wasn't done because they love you. It wasn't done, for anything other than they have an end game. And in that end game, they will allow you to think that the future is going to be great while they abuse you today. And that's just the whole cycle. It's a wash, rinse, repeat. And oftentimes when you're in the love bombing phase, because narcissists are wash, rinse, repeat relationships, when you're in the love bombing phase, the person that he was with prior to you is in the devaluation or the discard phase. So they move from relationship to relationship. So thank you for this time. I'm excited that you all have brought this about. And it's just, thank you.
No, thank you. And I will add to that, as we're talking and discussing this, and I know we're using terms like perpetrator, but really, it's people experiencing, right, domestic violence.
That's the correct
Because
line.
the research we're finding is there's so many different levels when it comes to domestic violence. It can be both people doing the perpetrating, right? It's
Yes.
not always a person that just stands out to be the perpetrator in that sense. So, and we have found through research that studies are showing us that when anyone is experiencing any type of discord, not only just domestic violence within relationships, it heightens their risk for suicide on both sides,
Yes.
right? So even going through divorce can be heighten your risk of suicide. So we want to make sure that we're providing support to those that are experiencing. So how are we feeling right now? Do we feel like we want to move on to another question, or do you want to maybe just take a moment for a quick break.
Let's take a quick break, a station break here, because we really want to hear from our vendors. And so we do want to take a few moments to have our vendors come up and share exactly what they do in the community. And I'm going to ask our first vendor from West Care, Georgia, Miss Shadea Henderson, to come and share briefly what she does at West Care, Georgia. And we want to take a moment after Shadea shares. We want to take a moment if you want to take a little selfie. We can take little selfies for a moment. You want to take a selfie? Come, Miss Henderson, and share with the audience and our online audience exactly what you do at West Care, Georgia.
Awesome. Again, thank you guys for having me today. My name is Shadea Henderson. I am the recovery coach for Free to Recover, which is a free outpatient treatment service. We're located at 827 Pryor Street in Atlanta, Georgia. The number one thing we do is try to improve the issues of substance abuse in the community, any type of drug history in the community anyone is suffering from, and we provide these services. So as a recovery coach, my job is to act as a liaison for the clients or consumers, provide them with resources in the community, any linkages that could help them with their recovery journey. As I always say, recovery is lifelong, and all of us are recovering from something. Recovery, you need extensive support. You know, you may get treatment, feel like you have recovered. However, you still need that community support. And we do that at Free to Recover, West Care, Georgia. Feel free, you guys, I have brochures, flyers that have additional information about our program. If you have any questions, concerns, please let me know, and I'll be available to answer any questions. Again, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Miss Henderson. And our next vendors, if they would come up, we have the Veterans Administration here. And as you all know, as Ms. Udoko shared with you guys, that 988 number is available, that crisis line, 24/7. Trust me, they never go to sleep. So they are available for you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Corey Ashmore. I am one of the community engagement and partnership coordinators with the Atlanta VA. And so I got my colleagues here, Juana, Stevette, we're here supporting you all, and the Veterans Crisis Line. And so we're with the Suicide Prevention Program at the Atlanta VA, and they have a really big initiative right now to address suicide prevention in the communities, not just with veterans, but for everyone. So just, I love the Women's Initiative. I love it, speaking about those toxic relationships and things like that. That's definitely a risk factor when it comes to women and suicide prevention. So we like to address that. And just some statistics. So we know in 2022, there are about 10,000 women who committed suicide. And so that's something to really think about. And we know the highest rates for women were ages 45 to 65. So that's also something to think about. And we know that the number one means for women to commit suicide is guns. And so along with the resources we have in the bag, we have gun locks so that you guys can distribute those to the people who need them, and so that we can promote gun safety, especially with women. So yes, our job is to work with communities and organizations, just like you all, to help create awareness and prevent suicide prevention in our communities. And like I say, it's not just for veterans, but for everyone. And so the number one resource I like to give out for suicide prevention is 988, great resource. You call, you don't have to be a veteran, you can be anyone. If you're just having a bad day, give them a call. There'll be a counselor on the other side of the phone immediately, and they will do whatever they can to provide support. So thank you for having us. And yeah, suicide prevention and the women. It's great. It's beautiful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So we're just going to pause for a minute before we jump back in to the questions. But I did want to touch base briefly, just briefly, with Anna. If you gave a lot of good information, you and Dr. Hope both. But Anna, is there any indicators for a healthy relationship? Because you gave us a lot of information on that narcissistic behavior. Is there anything you could tell the audience in regards to establishing a healthy relationship?
Now, are we talking about a healthy relationship within the narcissistic relationship or a healthy?
No, just a healthy relationship, period. Because you gave the difference between a narcissist relationship and a healthy relationship.
Right.
And so, are there any tips that you could give to our audience about establishing a healthy relationship?
If you're in a narcissistic relationship and you are being severely abused, the only healthy one is to get out. And my opinion, whenever you come to the understanding that you're in the toxic relationship, never, ever tell that person that you think they're narcissistic. Your abuse will get worse. You make your plan. I teach people how to make the exit plans. You make your plan at any undisclosed time. You set your money aside. You set your you have to have maybe one person that you can trust, that they can help you with that plan. Otherwise, anything that you do that does not line up with what they want, the abuse will be worse. The red flags that I talk about with relationships, red flags, they ignore boundaries. Things, when you get to know them, things don't add up. What they say and what you discover are two totally different things, but they have a really good reason why they're two totally different things. They always have a really good reason. Questionable friendships. Narcissistic people can't maintain friendships. They can maintain associates and people that they, hey, how are you doing? But you can tell that they really don't like people if they're not, showing them the affection and honoring them. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Anna.
So,
Thank you so
yeah.
much. I know you could go on and on and
And the
on
main
and
thing
on.
is you feel confused in that relationship. When you're with a narcissistic people, you feel confused. You don't understand what's happening. For anybody that's been in it,
It's extremely toxic.
yes, you don't
It's a
understand
very
what's happening.
toxic relationship. Oh, we have someone with a question.
So far, so much. But I have a question, Ina. Do you think the victim in the narcissistic relationship can begin to take on personalities
Absolutely, you have to.
as well as the
It's fight or flight. You have to. You get to the
Okay.
point where we call it narc fleas, because you start acting kind of like them. But when you start questioning yourself, am I narcissist? Then you know you're not. Narcissists won't ever question themselves. But if you're questioning yourself, it's just narc fleas, and it takes you getting away so that God can do the work in you that He needs to do. So yes, but it's fight or flight.
Thank you, thank you.
Anna. Thank you so much.
So I was going to just elaborate too. That's not really a easy question, a question that's easy to answer, because really it goes back to your personal values, how you define healthy. What I can say is working as a licensed master social worker, I find I like to do a lot with values. If you know what your personal values are, if you know that when you're with the partner and those things are aligned and you can be your authentic self, it might be a sign that it is healthy, right? But it really takes a level of self-awareness to look within and kind of continue to reevaluate, are you happy? And I think that's the best way sometimes you can answer that question. So thank you.
Exactly. And then understanding your belief system. Your belief system plays a role with that too, as well as your self-esteem level. Okay, so thank you, Anna, so much. Thank you, Ms. Udoka. And so we're going to move forward. We're going to move forward now. And Ms. Udoka will be talking to our next panelist.
Yes. So I know we've already talked a lot about the faith-based community, but we also want to really bring up a lot about the mental health and substance use, right? Sometimes these behaviors, especially violent behaviors, can come about just from the use of alcohol, right? It can bring out those behaviors. Not always intentional, right? When people are working and going through their own treatment that they need to get support with, they're not always able to really recognize that, hey, when I'm under the influence, I'm not myself, right? So with that, I'm going to move on to Miss Adrian because I know she does a lot of work with Chris 180 with substance use. So my question for you, Miss Lawson, I know you have worked closely with domestic violence in relation to substance use. Do you find that silence and isolation can also be some of the challenges for individuals both experiencing partner violence, especially when we know that depression and alcoholism can go hand in hand?
Okay, so can you hear me? Okay. All right, so substance use as a coping mechanism for victims of domestic violence is complex and a concerning issue. People who have experienced domestic violence may turn to substances like alcohol, as you mentioned, and or other drugs as a way to manage their emotions and psychological distress. So it's essential to be able to understand that while substances may provide temporary relief, it often exacerbates the problem faced by victims of domestic violence in the long run. So here's some key factors. Understanding the effects of certain substances that will enhance your actions. And so when we speak of substance abuse and when we speak of domestic violence, they almost go hand in hand. And I want to put you in a mind frame for a second, if I can just borrow your mind, and how you understand that certain things that we do, like that has already been discussed up here, our backgrounds, our experiences, the things that we intake both mentally and then physically are all key components to leading up to how we cope with certain things. And so understanding that certain substances that are used evoke different emotions. Did you know, I like to do a segment usually with my clients, did you know that alcohol, cocaine, PCP, amphetamines, opiates, and a big one, ecstasy, are all substances that evoke anger? Did you know that those substances also evoke depression? And so speaking from the offender or the person who is doing the action, if that person is suffering from substances, imagine how exacerbated that would be when they are, what their actions will then become. And so I want to put you in the realm of the person who is actually suffering and or who is a survivor of that type of abuse. When that person is in that situation, we tend to seek coping mechanisms. And so alcohol is usually the biggest for women and then secondary men if we're talking gender. Alcohol is usually the biggest coping mechanism that is used in order for them to be able to cope and say, hey, I need to deal with it. And scientifically it says it works for about this long. It's a temporary fix for the moment. And then when you come down off of it, that depression, bam, it crashes you and it hits you times 10. And it doesn't leave and your mind continues to play it over and over and over again. And so what do? When you get that temporary relief, who doesn't want to go back to that second of not having to deal with it just for a moment. And so you want to use some more, and you want to pick up, and you want to use some more. Before you know it, this is the thing. This is becoming my best friend. It's the only thing that I can relate to and talk to. Because sometimes, although we may have those supportive people around us, we feel like we can't really use those supportive people around us. And sometimes those people who are meant to be supportive around us can only do what they can do from the place of their understanding. And so I'm trying to do better. I'm trying to, I want you to get away from there. I'm giving you these advices. But it's like, you're not hearing me on the right here and the right now. And yes, this is great advice. Thank you. And yes, I need to do that. But can we deal with what is happening the right here and the right now? And as Ina mentioned, it takes about 7 attempts to finally get yourself out of the situation and in a healthier situation and start healing. And so I'm big in healing. You can't heal in the situation, right? You can't heal or help in the situation. And so going back to the question of substances as it relates to domestic violence, when in those situations, important things to be able to highlight is always have that plan. Pay attention to what your most pressing situation is in that moment. Do I need to get out of here? I always say safety, safety, safety. I can't stress safety enough. Do I need to get out of here? How can I get out of here? How do I get the help that I need? Let me start researching what my plan B can be if this thing goes too far. Maybe I'm not ready to leave. Maybe I said I'm ready to leave. Left, I came back. And that is okay. Dealing with, as a therapist, you want to meet that person where they are. And so those assessments and asking those questions and having those open dialogues and conversations with that person, you want to be able to hear what they have to say. And a lot of times we enter conversations already knowing the answer. Before somebody even opened their mouth, I got it. I know exactly how I'm going to deal with that, right? And so listening is a huge component when we are faced with someone who may be experiencing those addictions, someone who is experiencing domestic violence, an intimate partner relationship that's happening. I wanted to bring back up that it was mentioned a little earlier, it doesn't just happen to women. There is a forgotten space where they don't mention men, right? Very often, at one point in time, I used to work in a male's prison, and I used to hear, well, she hits me all the time. And so I hit her back, or I reacted, and now I'm the one in jail, right? And so who reports? Or when is it okay to report? And what is the stigma and the thought behind, if I'm a man and I report, like I'm supposed to take those things? Let's talk about that hidden abuse of that silence where we have elderly or children who cannot speak or disabled people who can't speak to it. So some of them are not talking at all, and so you have to wait to see those physical ailments. What if you can't see the signs? Does that mean you're not still breaking apart? Does that mean that there's not still something happening there? And so again, just to kind of tie that all up, we do run and we do seek for just those little moments of relief. And unfortunately, society has made it so okay to run to substances. I can walk down the street with a beer. I can drink until I pass out and have many drinks at a party. I can sing about it, I can rap about it, I can watch a commercial, I can watch a movie, and these things are okay. And so going back to just suffering in silence, speaking up is important. There are many places. I did a little research, and so there are 79 places just immediately in Georgia, in Atlanta, that will provide shelter, emergency shelter. They'll come get you. Go to a place of safety, run away. If you have your phone or even if you're home, they will come and they'll come get you. That's called crisis. There's crisis mobile vans. There is the number that we keep on repeating because this number is awesome. Crisis Hotlines, 988 from your cell phone. Everyone has a cell phone at this point. And so it's right there in the palm of your hand. All it takes is just one step of bravery to be able to reach out for the help that you need. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because you touched base. I mean, this has just been really so good. Adrian, you touched base on gender, and I am in total agreement with you that there is a population that's kind of put to the side because there are a lot of men challenged. I worked in a prison in Dallas, Georgia, and if you all could just see the number of men that come in that have been abused by women. Because women do abuse, you know, they abuse as well. And so thank you, Adrian, for bringing that to the forefront. And I cannot help to say that substance use disorder and domestic violence go hand in hand. They're brothers and sisters. You find young men, young women, elderly women, they get under the influence of alcohol or some type of drug, or they could be under the influence of prescription medication. And the house is in shambles after those drugs have penetrated through the body and hit the brain. It only takes 2 minutes for alcohol to hit the brain. It only takes 2 minutes. And so thank you, Adrian, for that. And we're going to move right along to Marinette Helms. She brings it home for us people. She brings it home talking about adoption and domestic violence. It's real. That whole realm with defects. So, Marion, you know, you're a professional with this. You've worked many years in mental health and with foster care and CPS investigator. So could you share with us the effects of domestic violence, not only with a woman, but with a child, and how the family, what the family go through?
Hello, everybody, and I'm honored to be a part of this panel, and I want to say thank you. In my years of working with children and families, and now specifically with foster care and adoption, what we see now is the children are angry. They are extremely angry, and they do not know how to express themselves, their emotions or their feelings, because they've always seen physical violence or verbal. That's their go-to. And you see, I'm sure you see it on the news with a lot of these high schools. They're in the bathrooms fighting, especially the young girls. The girls seem to be more vicious than we see with the young boys. And when it comes to, you know, us coming in, defects coming in because we get a report of domestic violence, and let me go back a little bit. It's also family violence. Because a lot of times the violence is not just with the parents. You see it with the children. Because the child will feel the need to help mom. So now you have dad turning at vengeance, especially the males. I'm working with a couple right now where the young man experienced seeing his mother physically and verbally abuse his whole life from a young kid. So now he's at the point where he feels that he has to have control of the situation because he did not, as a child, he could not control that situation and save his mom or step in. So now in his relationships, he is more controlling, not necessarily narcissistic, but the fear of not being able to have control. The fear of if he feels like he's losing control, he immediately lashes out in anger and not knowing how to communicate, express self, and then things escalate. But what we notice most in the children is the anger. And in our community, the mental health community, anger is a masking emotion. A lot of times they're not really angry. They're scared. They're scared. They're unsure. Their self-esteem is low. They don't trust. There's no psychological trust because, you know, when they were younger growing up or as a child, they never know when somebody is going to go off. Working in the adoption community, we have to do a lot of preservation in that area because if there's no psychological trust, then my guard has to always be up. And these children are working through what we call the primal brain, which is the survival brain. So that's where the anger comes in. That's where we find that a lot of times it's even turned on the mother who was abused. You know, that anger because it's, why didn't you get out? Why didn't you leave? Why didn't you do something that would prevent me from going into care? And not kind of understanding sometimes that mom might have been in a mental place where she just couldn't. So you see a lot of children, once again, with the anger. And also to what Adrian said as well, then we have the substance abuse. You know, getting on these drugs, ecstasy, fentanyl, perks, marijuana, drinking, and it's a way to escape. But not knowing that they done walk through a gate like hell because now you have the substance abuse plus the mental health, the insecurities, the anger, and sometimes suicide ensues, or with the prison, that's where you see a lot of the males and the young females going in because they make a decision that, you know, affects them long term. Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. I have another question for you. In regards to removing a child, talk about that, would you please?
Yes. Well, typically DFACS, unless the child cannot ambulate or articulate, which is what we would call a 24-hour, immediate. Immediate is you have to get in within 4 hours to get that child, assess, see what's going on. Or you have a 24-hour where the child can talk, can ambulate on its own. You know, typically DFACS go into assess. Now, if we have those two situations, then we would definitely have to take legal action, contact the courts and so on to have that child immediately removed. But when we have older children, what DFACS typically does is the first thing is not to remove the child. It's family preservation. What does this family need that can help them stay together? What is going on? So we would go in, I would have my team go in, and we would assess. We would assess to make sure the home is productive, there's food, there's cleanliness, mom's mental health or dad's mental health might be, you know, if it's intact. And then we will go on to say, well, what services then we can then connect this family to. So it's not always going into the home and removing the child. It's what services can we put in place to preserve this family. Now, if we have this excessive, corporal punishment or abuse with not just mom, but the child too, then after that assessment, when we come in, then we will advocate for removal and go through the steps. Now, let me say this. DFACS cannot just walk into your house, assess the situation, and then say your child is coming with me. It would usually take us, when I was supervisor for DFACS, it could take us all day, and if we go out at night, all night, because we would have to get in touch with a judge. We would have to explain to the judge what's going on. We would have to, our findings would have to be very detailed, and then that judge would give us sign off on the order to remove, right? So that's the very extreme. But yeah, with removing children, the first thing is not to take your child. It's what to assess. What is going on? How can we help this family? If it is a domestic violence, getting them connected to resources to see, what's going on. Worst case scenario, pulling that child out, and then we may try to find family, which we would call foster care kinship or adoption kinship, where we would reach out to the families first to see if we can house that child with that family member. Now, here's the thing, and I don't know if I'm overstepping, but with that, we also may come into some issues, because if you have grandma and her daughter is the one the child being removed from, and she has a relationship and the child needs to be removed, a lot of times grandma, once everything settles down, might let the daughter or the son back in. So now we got to remember the child's mindset. That psychological trust is gone. So now you're letting people this individual who exposed me to this, they're coming back around. I still don't feel safe. Once again, it goes back to that knee-jerk, not even knee-jerk, but that easy emotion of anger. And now you have a lot of kids acting out in school. You have a lot of kids, no respect for law, because they feel like nobody has protected me, nobody has saved me. I have to protect myself and save myself. So they move primarily out of what we call their primal brain.
Wow, that was a lot of good information. Really, really good. Because what you are saying to us, it kind of piggybacks really on what the other three panelists was talking about with that core issue of anger, because that's one of the root causes of what goes on in some of our churches, and they want to kind of give a scripture to kind of overplay it. And then the foundation, a part of the foundation of being a narcissist, that root issue of anger. And we all know with substance use disorder, one of the main causes is childhood anger, trauma. Yes. And so, wow, it's just been really good and great awareness. I trust that our online guests, I trust that you all have taken some notes, because this was some meat here today. It was not milk, it was meat. And it's something that we can chew on as we reach out into our communities to help our young people, because they need a lot of help, y'all. They need a lot of help. And so I'm going to turn it back over to Miss Udoko so she can do her thing.
Well, thank you. So I did want to check in, because I know we have people listening in. Do we have any questions from our online chat? And while he's reviewing that, one thing I also want to bring up, back to the substance use, unintentional suicide, right? So sometimes we have to remember, too, that when people can overdose, right, from use. So we have to keep that in mind, that not only does alcohol heighten those risky behaviors, heightens the anger, can even heighten the violent behavior, right? But it can also put you at risk of overdose, right? It can kill you. Yes. So we want to make sure we're keeping that in mind And I know Adrian, there's a lot with Narcan training. So I did want to highlight that for her because Narcan can save lives, especially with opioids, right? We want to make sure that people are aware and educated on how to utilize those.
There is one necessary comment online. This is from a Cynthia Carter. She says, thanks to the panel, a lot of people are not aware of what is offered in our own communities. So much information that I didn't know the meaning of. Thank God for bringing me out.
Wonderful.
This is from Cynthia Carter.
Wonderful, Ms.
Cynthia.
Carr. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you so much. We have a young lady here in the audience. It's Stacy Jennings. Okay, Stacy Jennings Singor is here, and she has a poem that she would like to recite from sitting here today and listening to the panel. So I'm going to ask Stacy to come up. And yes, she can come. Share, Stacy. She is a poet. And she is a poet from Divine Inspirations in Columbia, South Carolina. Yes, here you go.
Good afternoon, everyone. The most important part is being able to break the silence. I had an amazing time here today. And I do poetic summations, just as she said. And so sitting here, I got some of everything that all the panelists said while sitting here. Breaking the silence, standing strong to push on through. There is something going on in our communities that is urgent, that is prompting us to do what we need to do. Violence is lurking in our homes, it's lurking in the streets. There's a desire to increase awareness, a desire to come together and meet. The sense of urgency is real. The sense of urgency is true. We need to have a meeting of the minds to stop domestic violence that we must continue to pursue. We need to start by breaking the silence because silence can be damaging in every way. We need to bring awareness in not just what we do, but by what we say. Prayer is a must, but action speaks louder than words. You must go by what you see and not just by what you've heard. Pay attention to all of your surroundings. Keep an open mind. Domestic violence is deadly and not humanly kind. The enemy, he comes to steal, kill, and destroy. He's up to no good. He presents a manipulative ploy. The abuser is narcissistic, and he's manipulative in all that he does. It matters not what it is, nor is it what it was. Narcissists are homosexuals. Their intentions cannot be true. They present love bombs with lots of charm in order to capture you. They have the inability to maintain friendships. They are toxic in all of their ways. Their plan is to trick you and to trap you and to keep you at bay. Substance abuse is another culprit. With domestic violence, it goes hand in hand. It crashes you and it hits you to where you can no longer stand. You may not always see the signs, so you must create a plan. That one step of bravery should always be a great demand. The children get all mixed up as a part of all the abuse. The families, they fall apart. It seems there is no use. However, the best step to take is to help the family to stand, to walk with them, to comfort them, and take them by the hand.
We need a copy of that, Stacy. Oh, that is so awesome. Our online attendees, did you hear that? That is so, so awesome. Awesome, Stacy. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Thank you for being open and teachable, where you embraced everything that was said here on today. Thank you so, so much. So, so much. My grandmother used to always tell me, if you touch one, just one, just one. So thank you. My heart is just, whew. Okay. Miss Udoko.
So I do want to give a chance for the audience. If you want to come up, just say something encouraging, any closing remarks, please feel free to come up. Or I can come to you.
Hi, I'm Pam Alanis, and I'm one of the directors at Feet of Clay. Our website is feetofclayatlanta.org. I work with a young lady, she's the president of Feet of Clay, LaWanda Jordan, and by the grace of God, she is alive. She is a victim of domestic violence, and we provide housing. Just last night, we had to provide housing for a young lady and her two daughters. And that was a really crazy situation, but we will make sure that they get to their doctor's appointments. We'll make sure that they get to DFACS if they need to get, paperwork, get stamps, or we help them just get some type of stability in their lives. Also, we're going to have a gala. And if you go to our website, feetofclayatlanta.org, and leave your information, we will send it to you. And I hope I can go on my phone right here, probably not signed in, which I'm not, but I will make sure that everyone gets the information. But it's going to be on October the 28th. It's going to be a play. And it's really good information. I want to thank you for letting me give this information to you, and we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, because that's what the coalition is all about. That's exactly what it's all about.
Exactly. So is there anyone else that wants to share? I know we have a lot of key players in the room.
Well, I would like to share, actually.
Yes, please.
Thank you all. Most certainly to the one that spoke regarding DFACS. So I'm a foster parent, and I have 3 foster children, one that is 2 years old, 11-month-old, and a 20-month-old, rather. Yeah, all under 3. But you helped me to have a better understanding of what it is that they, even at such a young age, have gone through and how I can further help them. And so it has been enlightening and enriching for me and my family on how we can help those young people through this process. We've had them since February, and it did trouble me that they didn't have family to go to before they got to us. Now all of a sudden there is a grandmother who has not been to see them since February, and she lives in Jacksonville. But she wants them now. But my concern is if grandmother gets them, and I know, we sign up for this, grandmother gets them and dad gets out of jail. You mentioned about those same abusers coming back into their lives, and it's a complete just cycle that continues. So I guess what I'm really trying to say is you kind of helped me to bear this cross, dealing with this with our children in a sense. Prayerfully, whatever happens with the court cases and everything, it works in the favor of the children. Not for us personally being selfish, but for the children. And I pray, and I know I'm online, so I'll be frank, but I pray that they do not have to experience any more trauma. Thank you.
Hello again, Pamela Alanis with Feet of Clay. And I did find the information. It's a violence awareness gala. It's October the 28th. And it's Brownwood, 602 Brownwood Avenue, Atlanta, Georgia. The colors are navy, blue, white, semi-formal. and it's from 6 o'clock until 9 p.m. Free admission, donations accepted. And we also provide school supplies, we provide winter coats and furnishings if they need it. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And I think Marinette was going to respond.
With that, you said they're foster? Okay, yeah. So they have a guardian ad litem, which is their attorney. So they will definitely fight for these children. They do a lot of extensive background. The only thing that I would say is, most definitely pray, but sometimes we have judges who makes decisions and they do not listen to us because their goal is family preservation, but a lot of times family preservation with that particular family should not be an option. So I would just recommend you stay in constant contact with the guardian ad litem, the defects case manager, and and consistently pray. That's the downside of what I do.
And honestly, one of their great aunts, who is not actually trying to get them, who lives in Texas, reached out to us, and she said, I believe this had to happen to break the generational curses that have happened. She said it happened with my mom, it happened with my grandmother. She said now it's happening with my niece. It happened with my sister. And so she said these girls, she said they don't deserve what we went through. And so she said, maybe this is God's way to break that. And so I am in prayer, but also going to stay and keep pushing on those attorneys as well.
Yeah, and typically that's what it is, these children, they've been exposed to it. So when you have historical trauma, it becomes the norm. And so when you go in to try to work with these families, sometimes it can take years because it's the norm, and you trying to work with them to see the right way. It's looking at them like, well, what I'm doing is the right way because that's all I've known, that's all I've seen. So
Kind of back to that idea of what's healthy and what's not, right? If that's what their values, that's what their tradition is used to, in their eyes, that might be healthy, right? So I think that's just where education is the key. And this forum today was a great opportunity for us to become educated, knowledgeable, speak our experiences, each one teach one, right? We all were able to learn from each other. And so I'm glad everyone was able to be here. Before we close out, I do just want to put that back out there. Is there anyone else that wants to just give a closing remark? You all have been awesome, but I do know I want to be cognizant of people's time. So is there anyone else that would like to come and speak? Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm a nurse by nature, 49 years, so everything that has been said today has been inspirational. And this just set the icing on the cake for me today because I had a member 2 Sundays ago that came in church that had been abused. And she was talking about a situation that she was trying to get out of it. And I noticed that she had on all this makeup. And being a nurse, we are taught to look at the signs of, differences. She had a lot of makeup on one side, and then I said, oh, I like your hair. And then, when I got a little bit closer, I noticed that she had a black eye, but the makeup kind of camouflaged it. So, narcissistic it could have been. She always was polite in the morning when she came. She wanted to join the usher board and stuff like that. And so this particular day she came in and she just bust out and started crying. So I said, what's the problem? So I said, let's go to the altar. We're gonna leave it at the altar. So spiritual side, so I told her, we went and prayed. And so a couple of Sundays I didn't see her back to back. And I noticed the next day, they have these new shoes out with the big, look like a bubble. Y'all know what I'm talking, okay, step-in shoes. And so anyway, she came back and she had that on and then she was limping. So I said, well, what's the problem? You know, I said, is it something that I can help you with? And so she said, no, the doctor said I need to come and get my circulation checked. That was something different from what she was already doing because of the makeup. So anyway, we went, I said, okay, we're gonna go pray again. You know, we're gonna pray this, you know, whatever that's bothering your legs and, you know, that your appointment is gonna go fine. So she did that, and then so Sunday when she came, she said, well, the problem is gone. And then I said, what do you mean by that? And she said, the person that was bothering me is gone, but when we went to court, I found out that he had got somebody to come and stalk me. That was her next stalker. So, you know, even though people try to get away from it, if you don't get out of that setting or that surrounding, you know, that person will try to still get you. And even the bus driver knew because he started letting her out in front of the church and not up the street. So therefore, we've been praying. And so, like I told her, she said that she's been, where she stays, it's got bullets and, you know, guns and violence and stuff. So I told her the next goal is we're gonna work on that. I say, just like we prayed and that problem is gone, your next problem is going to be gone, and I'm going to see you through that. So I'm in the process of helping her look. So today was just, you know, it just touched my heart because we are right on time. But, you know, God is always right on time, and he's never late, you know. So I just want to thank everybody, thank the panel, and thank you all.
Thank you,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Yes,
For this young lady, they're getting ready to open up the Section 8. I don't know, they're getting ready to open up the Section 8 application again. And being that she went to court and she has a history, she will be considered a part of the priority. So she will go to the top of the list. So you definitely need to look into the Section 8 to see if she can get on that list. So as soon as it open up, she'll be able to get. It opened? Okay. Say that again, I'm sorry. Okay. So that's tomorrow.
That's the last
So
day.
you need to get in contact with her to go in and just put the application in. All right?
This is how important resource is. This is why these forms are very important. This is why. Come on, Chaplain.
Hey there, I'm Chaplain Watson from the Georgia Army National Guard, and I got exposed to this great group of women from being a part of the Governor's Challenge here in Georgia, but also I work with the primary prevention team, and one of my areas of focus happens to be inter-partner violence, but then also how can the church support its service members and veterans and their families. So I am full of all kinds of information and resources, and I'm hoping that my coworkers that were not able to attend in person were able to get online, because just as Dr. C has already said, the collaboration that we offer and can have, and then those resources, because I know at the Georgia Army National Guard with my soldiers, we certainly have a gap of IPV where it's happening and we don't track, we just don't know, but they need help. And then they finally, similar to the young lady that just spoke, they'll come to my office on the chaplain need side and completely broken, and now I'm trying to find resources. So the more that I can collaborate with all of you women in other places that are out there, hopefully we can continue to broaden our collaboration. We can just meet more needs. So I'm just happy to be a part and always be present. And please reach out if you have any needs too. And the Georgia Army National Guard, we are really trying to get out here and partner with our community, because our soldiers are in the communities across the state of Georgia, and they are having needs and issues, and we've got to figure out ways to meet those needs, even if we don't do it directly from our department and areas. We want to collaborate more with our community leaders like yourselves. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Chaplain. Thank you so much. Thank you all. so much. The young lady here had another comment.
I want to say one more thing about some of the people that may be listening that have gone through domestic violence or are going through domestic violence now. Sometimes they're not strong enough to leave. And when they do leave, they still has this urge to go back. And I did have a situation where a young woman, she lived in Alpharetta, and I live downtown Atlanta, and she was in a situation, and so I went to pick her up, and she had me keep the kids while she did this, that, and the third. And so I went to pick up something for her, and instead of her calling the people to say that we're on the way, we went all the way from there to downtown, and the people weren't there. And so I hung out with her until the people came, and then I went to take her back to Alpharetta, and she found out that the person that was supposed to keep the kids weren't able to keep the kids. And instead of her leaving me with the kids, she, had someone to come pick the kids up, and she called me at 2 o'clock in the morning. She had to go to work. Why didn't you just leave the kids? And I understand, with me. So I know they're going through a lot. Get a pencil and a pen. And if that wasn't enough, she didn't have all the documents that she needed. It was just a mess. But I know that they're going through a lot. Journal, take notes, use your phone to remind yourself, because they are going to a lot. Because that's putting the children through a lot, although they were little children at the same time, back and forth. They don't know what's going on. So make sure you're mindful of the children before you put yourself first, because I know it's an emotional trauma, but you have to have some type of order for the sake of the children.
Yes, thank you.
But that's what you call a exit plan. Whenever you're coming out of a domestic violence situation, you have to have an exit plan. Doing it, that's why people go back 7 times, because they don't have an exit plan, an exit strategy. That, like I said, you have that one person that knows where you are or what you're doing. If you tell too many people, then they're just going to tell the person that's you're running from. So it's important to have an exit plan when you do it. Get with you have trauma therapists that, for the most part, they can teach you, exit plan. Get with anyone that understands the abuse so that you can get that concrete exit plan so you don't have to keep going back.
And as we close, I was just going to bring up the resource, just to be aware, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is available. So if you need help with safety planning, exit plans, they can help you with that as well. And if you don't know the number, if you forget to Google 988, right? Because even 988, they can get you directed over there. So just keep that in mind.
And the reality of the 988 number, those providers, as Ms. Udoko just said, they're going to do a safety plan right there, and they're not going to hang up their phone until they do a safety plan with you. And in some instances, people are kind of stuck, and you really have to understand the mindset and how certain parts of the brain has been damaged from living in trauma. We deal with the homeless population, substance use, domestic violence. We deal with those things at the agency and where I work. And if you do not have an understanding of the damage that it has caused cognitively, then you won't know. I like the fact that you talked about prayer. Those that are believers, you already know the power of prayer. Prayer is a tool to help you move forth, because that power greater than yourself, for those that believe, the power greater than yourself is going to help you if you activate the measure of faith that has already been given to each human being. However, men and women that are caught in the grips and the web of DV or family violence, intimate violence, substance use, narcissistic relationships, they are caught in the grips of that thing. And sometimes their mindset, they stay right where they're comfortable. They're fearful of going anywhere else. This is what I know. I know he beats me. And some of them have excuses. He didn't mean to do that. I caused that to happen. You know, they blame themselves because that's how the narcissist got them thinking. And so this is why we come into the church, and I can't help for wanting to take a moment to thank St. Paul. Come in, Miss Pratt.
Let's give her a round of applause, y'all, because this lady does a lot. She does a lot.
Miss Pratt is a jewel. Do you all hear me, St. Paul? Y'all better take care of her. Because the coalition gonna take care of Miss Pratt. Okay, we're gonna take care of her too. We're gonna take care of her too. So that's a good thing, right, Miss Pratt? Would you like to say something? Just let me know what you need me to do. Sweet, sweet spirit. And a true servant. A true servant. And so we have Dr. Hope. She want to share something, and I want to go ahead on and give all our thanks. It's on your program. We do have special thanks. But come on, Dr. Hope.
Well, I just wanted to say briefly about what Sister Linda shared about her experience in the church. Because I think we've been talking about the God factor and how God is sovereign, right? And it takes the right person to receive somebody who is going through. And I hope that we're sensitive enough to hear that, because the wrong person engaging that particular person who's already in an experience could actually turn them off, away, and disconnected, right? So we know that silence is real, isolation can be real, but I hope that we all hear that the church is a part of the solution for breaking the silence about domestic violence. And so I just wanted to commend you. That was my part about the church and faith-based, right? Because I do think training is ongoing. Your nursing background help, your sensitivity, your assessment of the situation, the confidentiality piece of it, and understanding that all of it was ripe for you to be that face, that comfort, that security, that she could come back. And then now you're gonna, journey with her. And I think sometimes we don't realize that people need people to journey with them beyond that one conversation. And so I don't know what God is gonna do with you for this experience or what the church will do to embrace that. But thank you for sharing it, because it takes somehow with deep sensitivity. Taking her to the altar is a part of it. She's in the action, but knowing it's something else as well. So just thank you for journeying with her.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Hope. And just to touch base, you said journey. Be faith for her. Be faith for her. Because being in those situations, you lose hope. And so people need to see. So be faith for her. Hope puts feet to faith. So be faith for, and that's what she was. And that's what you're talking about, Dr. Hope, journeying right there. And I think, and I'm going to be quiet because Dr. Hope done sparked something. And so did you, but I think, Yuana, is that the church in some aspects, and she said it earlier, don't want to take the time, and the patience to be with our young people and to be able to embrace them right where they are. But they will sit back, and I've heard it in my own little churches up north. They'll sit back. Did you see what she had on? Did you see how that child walked up in here? Did you see him coming up in here smelling like a smoke factory? All that needs to go out because it's time for them to learn because they're watching you. So if they see you walking upright, they see you dressing appropriately, you know what I'm saying? It'll rub off. And I say that because I needed somebody to be faith for me. Okay, over 35 years ago, I needed somebody to be faith for me. And so we have to be faith for those that we serve. That woman is stuck in all that violence. That young girl that's caught up on fentanyl or out there on Metropolitan, 2 o'clock in the morning, waiting on her trick. We have to be faithful for them and embrace them. So what she coming here with pants, shorts up to her cheeks? So what? So what she coming here and all her cleavage just hanging out? So what? You teach her. Journey, I like that. Journey. We have to learn how to journey with them. I'm going to be quiet.
I just want to say
Yeah,
something.
so we're going to let Marinette,
This is the
go
last
ahead.
thing I want to say. In domestic violence, whether we're professionals or we're friends and family, we still have to be mindful because that individual, it can, once you start to help and step in, that person, you become one of their victims as well. So you have to be mindful in that. In this field, I've worked it for many years and I've seen where therapists were murdered. So everybody has to be mindful of that. So I just wanted to leave that, not to scare you, but just, you have a plan as well when you're helping these individuals. When you're going to pick them up, a lot of times they're being followed. They're taking pictures, and your license plate. So safety, safety, safety.
Thank you for that, and that's important. Okay, so Dr. Timon is going to go ahead and close us out with some special thanks.
And I just want to first and foremost give special thanks to all of those that are online today. You took the time to click that link and sit and listen to a wealth of knowledge. So I want to thank those that are online and thank all who came to attend on today. But not only that, I want to thank St. Paul, the senior pastor, Sean Drain, and the executive pastor, Courtney Mackey. Thank you, Pastor Mackey. I tell you, he jumped right in and got the technology all set up. I want to thank our community engagement specialist, Yuana Yoko. Udoko. I left the Doko out. I left that out. I want to thank her because she is also Miss Pratt, a jewel. She really, truly is. Yuana kind of helps keep things. I want to thank all of our panelists. Reverend Dr. Hope Simpson. Can we just give her, I want to thank you, Dr. Hope, for participating and volunteering to come because she traveled to be here with us on today. I want to thank my friend Ina Myers. I want to thank Ina with the wealth of information she brought on today. I most definitely want to thank my sister, a friend. She co-hosts with me with Youth Circle. She's a part of the ministry with me. We've been in the trenches together with DFACS. She was my supervisor at DFACS. I just want to thank her for the knowledge that she has obtained and how she implements that knowledge. Marinette Helms, you know I love you. I also want to thank my sister, someone I am becoming very fond of, very straightforward, New Yorker, up north queen. Miss Adrienne Lawrence, thank you, Adrienne, for bringing that information to the table. And so we're saying, I want to thank another young lady that's a part of the coalition.